Bob Bay. Yeah!
Hi, I'm Bob. I'm alcoholic. Sober through the grace of God and AA since the 10th of December, 1967. For that, I'm very grateful. Wow. Wow. There are a few rooms of over 50 people that have the quality of sobriety and recovery, and I feel a connection with as much as I do with the people in this room. Thank you for the opportunity of being here. Been a hell of a year. I had an Achilles repair, a pacemaker, and my knee went out 2 weeks ago, and it's arthritis in a cartilage, and we can only hope that my mind has not followed the decay of my body. We will see. We will see. Young Catholic kid born in St. Paul, Minnesota. Lived there all my life. I'm one of 7 kids. Got a great mom and dad. My dad was my hero. My mother was an amazing woman. Got a college degree in business in the 30s, the 1930s. Had a tongue like a razor blade, and she was an extraordinary lady. I lived in a great home. I grew up in a fabulous time, a time when you could leave your bicycle in the neighborhood and go back and get it the next day, and that's kind of gone. Our parents were those Second World War vets that drank hard, played hard, worked hard, and made life look pretty attractive and pretty interesting. In my neighborhood, if you were Catholic and had less than 7 children, you had a reproduction problem. I mean, we literally, 5, 6, 7, 12, 13, we had clans, and the clans were, the Troys down at the end of the block had 7 that matched our 7, and, you kind of stair-stepped the way through. And they drank hard, and we stole their booze and copied them. And I found myself in high school. I was 4'11" when I started high school, 95, second smallest kid in the school. Mostly mouth. And I went to a military academy on a college campus. We drank in high school. We had fraternities. We drank in high school like most people drank in college. And it was a great school. And it was a good school. And towards the end of my career there, I had a reputation for drinking too much. It stopped me from a couple of things that I would have wished to accomplish, but I was a good student. And but I got in trouble, got arrested a couple of times. I had a car accident, that sort of stuff, and I had a chance to go away to school. I thought I was just doing what my dad and his family did, and of the group I drank with, there was about 6 of us. 4 of us are members of Alcoholics Anonymous, and 2 of our wives. The other 2 guys that didn't make it died of alcohol, Korsakoff syndrome, my 2 next-door neighbors. And we all have more than 45 years of sobriety, and we've all been married 57 years. Those are unusual statistics for drunks. That is, So I had a chance to go away to school. I thought my drinking would become normal. I loved getting away from my old man. And a long story short, I drank my way out of the University of Notre Dame in the middle of my senior year. I was in the yearbook with my class ring, civil engineering, 3.5 years, and walked out. I remember talking, I went and told the rector that I was leaving. He said, "You're what?" He said, "You're a senior. You can't." I said, I'm done. It gets kind of tough to bluff your way through a thermodynamics exam. I hadn't been to school just get up and go to school. I didn't know where my classes were. I was the class drunk. They used my room as a study hall. I mean, I literally was the class drunk. Won't get into too many details, you guys all know. I went down, I had to give an AA talk in Mishawaka, a neighboring town of South Bend, last year. Jack set it up with me with one of the guys he sponsors. And the guy took my wife and I and Mike around on a tour of the campus. Now, the campus is so different than it was, back in 1961 or whenever the hell I was there. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I tried to imagine the 18 or 19-year-old kid that took a left-hand turn. I mean, I was a good student. I mean, I started out, and all of a sudden, I just became a full-time drunk. Supported myself by gambling. I'm playing cards, and I'm shooting pool, and I'm in ROTC, which I never attended, getting $80 a month. And I walked out. And I was due to be commissioned in June, so I had to get a medical release I got was for alcoholism. I was diagnosed an alcoholic when I was around 18 years old by a psychiatrist that my family had me being psychoanalyzed by, and I thought that was a bunch of hooey, and it turned out to be very implemental for me. And they let me go. I didn't have to get drafted. I showed up at home to a set of very disappointed parents. They had no idea I was in the kind of trouble, because my brother's down there, and he's magna cum laude, asshole. And, they had an idea that was very difficult, and I was struggling. Finished school at a local university, and when I finished school, they asked me to leave home. How hard that must have been for, we're parents of 3 kids who are also at one time in the program. How hard that must have been for them to, and it was time. In my day, when we grew up, if you were 18 or 22, and you finished school, you were gone. I mean, there was none of this, come back to the house and go do that thing. We were gone. I got a job at a liquor store. It's important to use your gifts. And I'm stealing booze. I'm driving with a Jag-on, delivering alcohol. And I lose that job. I quit. I got in trouble. And then I took a job as a waiter. I'm living sort of on Skid Row, downtown Minneapolis. I'm drinking between a pint and a fifth a day. I'm working as a waiter from, 11 o'clock till 2, and then at 2:05 I go drink beer. At 5 I go buy a half pint. Come back and work as a waiter. I'm shacked up with people that I live, the waiters and waitresses. Those Dr. Seuss, that child author, those are actual photographs of people I live with during that period of my time. And I went to a party one night, I got my face kicked in, and I got fired as a waiter. And I had no place to go. And I went back to the family, asked if I could move back in the house. They allowed me to move back in the house. He asked me not to drink. I, of course, promised not to drink. I never knew it. Now, I'm drinking a lot. I never knew I could get in trouble quitting. Well, all of a sudden I'm, falling apart, shaking, hallucinating. I ran out of the bedroom. I fell over a balcony or banister. Damn near killed myself. I was a mess. When I moved back in the house, I was as tired of being the family ass as they were having me be the family ass. I have loved my brothers and sisters, and I really was. I mean, the guy that's breaking in the house at 2 o'clock in the morning, they locked the house. So I go up second floor balcony and scale a 6-inch ledge across the house, break into my sister's bedroom. I mean, I was the family ass. And I was really tired of that. And when I moved in, I really wanted my life to change. I can't tell you how confused I was. My mother always said, "Bob, you're not very bright. Dress well." And I looked like I could do it. Only if you knew me well, you would know that I'd start out okay, but I'd never finish anything. And I wasn't going to drink. I was going to change. It was going to be okay. I'm waiting to get drafted. I'm no longer exempt, and the Vietnam War is on, and I'm going to get drafted. you know, so at any rate, I get back together with my girlfriend, who's now my wife. I loaded at a park. I'm so drunk I can hardly talk, and she's with a date, and I asked her if she could meet me the next day. She met me the next day, and I said, can we get back together with the idea of considering getting married? She said yes. I mean, a psychiatric nurse working in an alcohol ward said yes. So she's one sandwich short of a picnic for sure. And next day I met her and did that. And then I go over, she drives me over to the draft board. I get accepted into officer candidate school. I go over to take the physical, and I did. But they lost my physical, and they asked me to come back and take it again. I go back and take it again, and I failed the physical for a hearing problem. I can't hear dog whistles and tree toads. And I don't have to go to Vietnam, so it's going to start my career. So I get a job as a, I don't know what I was, executive secretary or something at a manufacturing concern. Now I'm the company drunk. I'm sleeping off my hangover in the dark rooms. I'm falling asleep at my desk. I used up my sick leave in the first 2 months at work. I stayed there about 5 months. When I quit, the guy said, God, you interviewed so well. When I went back to make amends to the guy who hired me, he said, you really interviewed well. I said, yeah, we do. We have performance issues, but we interview well. I quit that job. I got a sales job, and company drunk. And I'm not going to work, and I wake up. I miss work 4 or 5 days in a row. I wake up a Thursday, July 1967, hugging the toilet, doing my morning exercises. That was my moment. I mean, it's just my moment. I mean, I was in a suit that I'd worn for 3 days. I was as tired of I was so fed up with myself, so disgusted with myself to tell you. I mean, it isn't like I didn't have good examples, and it isn't like I knew what it was to be a man. And hugging that toilet that morning was not what I wanted. And a memory of my dad calling a guy that owned Hazelden at the time, recommending that I go to Alcoholics Anonymous. I'd never really heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I called up the operator. I think she gave me the wrong number once, and then I got Alcoholics Anonymous, and I got the old-timer central office, Stu. And Stu talked to me for 15 minutes. And then he called a couple of people on another line, and he said, could you go meet a couple of guys at the St. Clair Broiler, 1.5 miles from my house today at 6 o'clock? Yeah, I'll go over and do it. As soon as I hung up the phone, I was sorry that I called. I thought it was an overreaction. I did not, all that sort of stuff that we go through, but I wanted to go see what an alcoholic looked like. So I showed up at the diner at 6:30 at night. One guy who was an artist, the potted potter, had 6 months, and the other guy had 6 years. And they sat me down in a booth, and they said, we're from AA. We had a drinking problem. Found an answer for it. Want to share it with you. Hope it helps you. If it doesn't help you, don't worry about it. It helps us talking to guys like you. And they told me the story. I have been in front of every kind of help a young person could be in front of. Doctors, lawyers, Indian bishop, priests, nuns, psychiatrists, psychologists, proctologists. I have been in front of literally every kind of help my parents in their desperation were looking for. What the hell's wrong with this kid? And in a matter of 45 minutes, these two men changed my life. Told me the story. I'd never talked to another person who had a drinking problem. I talked to my psychiatrist, and he told me of what he thought alcoholism was. And they took me to a meeting. I drank twice after that meeting, once after a month and once after 3 months on a business trip after a month, and on my honeymoon after 3 months. But I met my sponsor at my first meeting. My sponsor was Warren McGinley, sober sometime in July 1954. A mailman, lost half his crew in a bomb disposal unit in Italy. And he was my sponsor. His wife was my wife's sponsor. And he was the 12-step champion of our group. And I got to be his wingman. I got to be his sponsee because his wife worked with my grandmother at a dairy co-op. And he knew my last name. I mean, what are the odds? Mm-hmm. Without that man, I would never have had the experience I've had in Alcoholics Anonymous. He was a conference goer, and he took me, and I got to hear all the communicators, of the 50s and 60s, and pointed my life in a magically new way. And so I'm this 23-year-old kid. I guess I was 24 by a week. And I came home and turned myself into my sponsor, and then I started being a very, very active member of AA. In those days, my sponsor mostly went to one meeting a week. But he sponsored so many people and he made so many 12-step calls, he probably was at 4 or 5 meetings a week. He was the guy. But in those days, the group that I knew did not go to meetings like we go to meetings today. And they were not in the book to the degree that we were today. Our 95% of the meetings in Minnesota were closed step discussion meetings. You came in, Jack gave the step, we did roll call, we picked someone to wash the coffee cups. Jack did the step, we broke into upstairs and downstairs, and we finished the conversation about how the step operated in their lives. That was what we did day in and day out. So I had a great foundation in the steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. So I can't tell you, first gift, I loved AA. 24-year-old kid, I loved AA. I work with a boatload of young people. Every time one of the people in another group had a guy, they often send them over to me. And they go to meetings as long as I took them, but they weren't identifying, they weren't ready or whatever the hell it was, and it wasn't working. But my gift is I felt home from the moment I walked in the door. I'm in a room full of, Second World War vets and a couple of women. They accepted me unbelievably well. And so I started my journey in Alcoholics Anonymous. I didn't get in touch with my defects of character during my first year of sobriety. I was on a honeymoon. I was so enthralled with the language, with the meetings, with the ideas, with the change. I could not we would go after an open house and we'd send our wives home and we'd talk till dawn. The sun would come up and there'd be 4 of us sitting there talking AA. 24-year-old, I just could not get enough of what it was. I wanted, the whole deal. During my second year, I got in touch with my defects of character. I can't get up in the morning. I later found that it has something to do with when I went to bed, but I spend more money than I make. If you're running that one, if you do that over a long period of time, you end up in debt. I just want to report that to you if you don't know where that's going. I'm an unhelpful husband. My wife's a psychiatric nurse. She's getting up at 5:30, going to work. We're starting to have children. All I want to do is AA. It is, and I'm an unhelpful husband. I have a gambling problem. Well, it's more of a hobby. 4 or 5 hours a day, 4 or 5 days a week. It was not that big of a deal, but I'm making about $5,000 a year playing backgammon. Now, my salary was only $6,000 a year. So it was like a second job. Jesus Christ. And I had some work issues. I had trouble getting to work. I often didn't stay at work, and I had trouble working at work. Other than that, I was a pretty good worker. First 2 years I worked for my dad. We almost killed each other. I mean, I was the worst employee in the world, and I worked for 2 years. Then I started my own company now have a business partner who's sober 61 years. So the two of us, I'm sober 57, he's sober 61. We started a real estate company back in 1970, and we're still partners. We're very different guys. And during that year, I started to get these things handed to me. And I can't tell you how much I thought, well, I finally found out what the hell's wrong with me. I'm an alcoholic. And I finally found out what the answer is. It's Alcoholics Anonymous. And if I do okay in Alcoholics Anonymous, my life will... I somehow magically thought I would turn out like my dad. Like I would turn out like my dad's friends. That I would have a executive job, that I'd be... have a big house and 4 or 5 kids. I mean, I just thought that was my destiny. I never had any idea you actually had to do something to make that happen. So I got a pretty good list of my defects of character. Second year, third and fourth year, they started to bother the crap out of me. I'm going to 5 meetings a week. I'm sponsoring people. I'm starting to give talks. I'm really a pretty active member of Alcoholics Anonymous. In my 6th and 7th year, they're eating my lunch. Now, I'm telling my sponsors 65% of what's going on. And I know you guys do 100, and congratulations. I think that's just wonderful. But I'm only telling myself 65% of what's going on. When you're in it, you don't see it. Life is lived forward but understood backwards. I did not. I really didn't understand. I knew the details of the circumstances, but I didn't know the causes and conditions. And finally, around somewhere in my 7th or into my 8th year of sobriety, I had my second surrender experience. I come to Jesus. I was as tired. When I came in AA, I had a wall built around me. The thinking that went on behind the wall said, you like me, but you only like what I let you see about me. If you could see everything about me, you wouldn't like me. I don't like me. Who knows more what a lousy, crummy, insufficient person I am than me. I'm walking around comparing my insides with your outsides. And when I came to Alcoholics Anonymous, I started to tear that wall down. I tore it down when I called AA. I tore it all the way down to the best of my ability when I did my 5th step and the conversations with my sponsor. But brick by brick, I built the goddamn wall back up. Sober, 5 meetings a week. Thank you very much for helping my drinking problem. Stay out of my sex life. Stay out of my marriage. Stay out of my work. Stay out of my finances. Stay out of my gambling. Brick by brick, sober, active, I built the wall back up. And I found myself thinking, God, can't you? Everybody thinks I'm a really great AA kid. And I say, can't you see? I'm dying. 8 years sober. And no, I knew what I had to do. I had to find out what God had to do with Wednesday. I knew an awful lot about God. Grade school, high school, and university, and parochial schools. I could do 5 minutes on God. But I didn't know God the way my sponsor knew God. I didn't know God the way another gift, I love the old timers. So I had really good examples for me. I didn't have the depth of relationship that they had. And I thought, well, I got to get rid of 1 or 2 of these defects of character before I go turn myself in. I just can't take the whole list in. And I wasn't able to get rid of any of them, and I finally went back to the steps for the 3rd time. Powerless and unmanageable. Anybody with a room temperature IQ could have seen I was powerless and unmanageable. No question. No doubt. Came to believe in the power greater than myself. I'm 8 years sober, and I lost step 2. I believed it for you. I believed it for us. I didn't believe it for me. I'm 8 years sober. My pants are on fire, and I'm in trouble, which is the story of my life. I start well. I don't finish anything. This is a very old story. I took step 3 on my knees with my sponsor in his office. We didn't do that in Minnesota, but I started to hear the California people talk about it, and I thought, I'm going to give that a run. Did it. I went to do my 3rd, 4th, and 5th step. We did those with clergy in my group. We had priests lined up to do that. But I heard the California people talking about doing it with their sponsor, and I thought, I'm going to try that. I asked my sponsor, sure. And I said, I feel like I'm dying of thirst lying next to a lake. I said, I know what to do. If you came to my house with my problems and told me my story, I think I could help you. I just can't or won't do it. I am so bloody tired of can't or won't do it. I think I'm ready to do whatever. And I did my 5th step with him. We cried and talked a little bit. My sponsor was a mailman. And he said, I want you to find someone who works with business executives. I'm a mail guy. And I want you to go, you have a lot of issues around money, work, success, and failure. My dad was a pretty successful guy. I'll never be as good as my own man, all that kind of stuff. He said, I want you to start that conversation with the psychologist, and I want you to bring the conversation back to me, and we'll have that conversation with respect to your program. I thought, oh, crap. I didn't want to get outside help. I mean, today, lots of people get outside help. In those days, psychiatry was, 2 pages in the yellow pages. I mean, it wasn't the industry that it is today, and very few people either were doing it or talked about it. And I thought, okay. So I get a recommendation, someone I knew well. The guy says, well, you get your parents involved. I said, no. I said, Christ, I'm 30 years old. My parents have been over-involved in my life. If you can't help me find me someone who can. He said, well, get your wife involved. Well, when your wife's in the room, there's just a lot of information that is not necessary to the core issue of recovery. And a lot of it's embarrassing. Yeah, I'll get my wife involved. Well, you get your kids in. I said, Christ, they're, yeah. So I'm into the psychiatrist's office. I'm explaining to him that my company's going bust. And I'm busting my ass 2-3 hours a day. And, I know none of you guys have this issue. Have fun. And I'm explaining to him they're going to put my name in the paper. I'm going to lose everything I have. So he looks at me and he said, why are you so afraid of failing? And it was like he hit me. I mean, it literally felt like he had struck me. I mean, he went right to the core. And I got in his face a little bit, and I said, you're a doctor. I said, you go through bankruptcy, you just wait 6 months and take your little sign and walk down the hall and pound it on another door, and you're making $100,000 within 6 months. I'm going to lose everything I have. Nod your head up and down if you understand that. What I discovered in that man's office was fear. Now, you'd think a guy, we were not as good with the book. Well, I wasn't as good with the book. Some people were, but by and large, we have become much better with the book than those days. Fear was dogs, snakes, and tall buildings. I'm afraid of being a husband. I'm afraid of being a dad. I'm afraid of work. I'm afraid of failure. I'm afraid of success. I mean, I am swimming in fear. And I skip over it in an inventory. It doesn't, that discovery, I'm a salesman who doesn't make sales calls. I don't make sales calls. I just lie. And 10 days later, I'm in my living room. I left work early, got in a backgammon game, I won $500. I missed dinner, I missed the AA meeting, I got in a fight with my wife, and I slapped one of the kids. One of those things you'd like videotape and sent to the General Service Office to show what 8 years can do. And I said, gee, it happened again. I said, it happened again. Weren't you there? Yeah, but it's so habitual. I don't even have to think about what I'm doing. It's just like it happens, and I thought, what a bunch of crap. Your life is the way it is because you designed it that way. You sound like a guy who wants to quit gambling. You want to gamble whenever the hell you want to gamble and not have problems because of gambling. You want money without work. You want your wife and children's love and affection without spending adequate time with them. Not a very good design. And that night in my living room, 1 o'clock in the morning, I was reading the Bible. God, I was desperate. I realized that I had tried as hard as I knew how to try to clean my act up, and I had failed. Boom. I don't know if I could have said those things as clearly as I said that night. And I got down on my knees, and I was given the opportunity to take the 6th and the 7th step at a level that I had never taken it before. 6th step said we're entirely ready to have God remove the defects of character. 7th step said we humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. I spent 8 years trying to get rid of them. I do not have the power. I have the responsibility. But I'm the pipe, not the well. It happens through me, not by me. And I had been trying to do it haphazardly, by me, rather than through me. I said the prayer, and that night I quit gambling. I've been trying to quit gambling for years. That night, the next day, I turned the checkbook over to my wife. And I went on an allowance. I got $100 a week. She puts it on the dresser. Now I'm up to $200. But, okay. But I stopped writing checks, and I stopped using credit cards. I made appointments with my sponsor about going to work, staying at work, and working at work. I remember the first time, I'm selling real estate investments. I'm out in the parking lot. I got to go sell a real estate investment to the executive vice president of General Mills. Normally I just blow the call off, but now it doesn't matter if I want to do it or don't want to do it. Interesting, isn't it? Doesn't matter that I don't. I always thought if you didn't want to do it, it mattered. I didn't want to do it. I'm reading the 3rd step prayer. I get out of the car, go up the elevator, I go calling this guy. I'm trying to sell him 10 grand worth of investment. That would be like close to 100 grand today or something. And he buys 20 grand. And when he got 20 grand, 2 grand went into the company. I'm bringing home only $1 grand a month, but I'm gross bringing home almost 2. And I'm in the elevator going down, and I had this thought, you know, if a guy did that regularly, you're not very bright, Bob, dress well. My life took off like it was on a rocket ship. All of a sudden, the guy that, I've always been smart, I've just never been effective. That is a really crappy combination. Smart but not effective. And all of a sudden, I'm the guy making sales calls. My partner is an unbelievable salesman. All of a sudden, I'm the guy that's doing all the analysis for the deals. You know, computers are just coming in, and I start to have some facility with that. And I'm making sales calls, and I'm effective. How that happened? I mean, I'm in church, so I hired a woman to call me at 5:30 in the morning, moderation. I'm getting up at 9 before this, so I hire a woman to call me at 5:30. So I went to Mass at 6 o'clock every day. And after Mass, this huge cathedral, I go over to a side altar, and I said, God, give me your mind. I don't know what to do. Bullshit. I knew exactly what to do. I didn't know how to do it. I knew what to do. I didn't know, for me, how, Bob, to do it. Give me your mind, and I'll be damned. He did. And all of a sudden, I started to do what I knew. And it was wonderful. And for the next number of years, I made enough money to burn a wet elephant. Some of that's luck. some of it's being significantly in the real estate business. In 1984, they changed the tax law, and no longer could doctors and lawyers, people deduct the losses from what I was selling the investment. We used to be the primary way that people would purchase it. And real estate values over the next 4 or 5 years dropped lower than they had ever been since the Great Depression. And by that time, I had amassed, a net worth of maybe $10 million. I lost it all. And it never occurred, if any of you are praying to be a millionaire, include the idea of keeping it. Doesn't take much longer if you're praying. It never occurred to me that I could, I'm the guy driving 2 Mercedes. I got a big one and a small one, and I'm, in the fancy suit. And I'm the asshole that blows into the meeting, overdressed, and, thinking God bless me because I'm such a wonderful son of a bitch. How would you like me in your group? So there's problems with failure. There's also issues with success or arrogance. And in a matter of 3 or 4 years, I lost everything I had. And I just absolutely couldn't believe it. And we've got, I guess by that time we may have had our 3rd child. I got the big house, 11 bedrooms, 5 fireplaces. Had a fire sale and sold the house. They let us keep the business. Don't know why they believed us. I said, I'll give you everything I have. I got $1 million in the bank. I'll give it to you. I'll give you the house. If you force me into bankruptcy, I'm going to give that money to Uncle Sam because you're going to create a tax issue for me, and I'm going to use that money to do that. They let us live. And it took us about 5 years or 6 years or 7 years. For about 5 years, there wasn't a normal real estate transaction. Banks imploded. All the major banks in Texas went under. All the S&Ls went under. It was, the average person didn't see it much, but it was a catastrophe. It wasn't like 2008 that affected everybody. So, I remember telling Jerry Jones, one of my dearest friends in AA, I'm in his hot tub telling him the story again. And he said, I don't feel sorry for you. And I thought, well, stick it up your ass. You don't feel He said, if this was happening to me, what would you think? I said, well, you're the senior partner of a major law firm. You'll be fine. And he says, that's what I think about you. We're going to be sitting in this hot tub 5 years from now, and you're going to tell me what happened. And of course, that's exactly what happened. 5 years later, life was enormously different. I was back, in a way that I never dreamed I'd be back. I'm the father of 3 kids. At one time, they were all in the program. Our son Bill is 30. I don't know. I know their names. He's got 36 years, I think, of sobriety. Doesn't go to AA. Fabulous man, married with a couple of kids, 3 kids. Peter has 31 or 2 years of sobriety, and Peter was the family ass. He was the dork. He went to 5 colleges. He went to 2 or 3 before he got the idea of attending. I wonder where he got that. So he gets an idea to up his act. And so one of the guys that worked at Hazelden, Bill Pittman, kind of a famous guy, or well-known guy in AA, takes Peter to New York and brings him to NYU. And Peter falls in love with NYU, and so Peter moves to New York. Across the street from NYU, they won't take him as a student, but they let him in to take a couple of classes, and every week for 2 years, he went in and asked to be admitted. And finally, after he was a professor assistant and did a practice film for them, they let Peter in, and he got a degree from NYU. Pretty tough to get. And then he worked in Hollywood for 5 or 6 years, and then he hit a brick wall. He took 200 practice exams for the GMAT and got into Oxford University Business School in London and graduated from Oxford with an MBA. The World Economic Forum made him a young global leader, and Harvard gave him a full ride to Kennedy School. That was our family asshole. I mean, what a miracle. You know, would he have been able to do it without 10 years of sobriety? Nah. I mean, it's an extraordinary story. And Daniel had about 17 years, went back out and smoked a little dope, and he's back. I don't know, he's got 6 months or something like that. They're really fine men. I'm married to an extraordinary woman for 57 years. One of the great over-married men in Alcoholics Anonymous, of which there are quite a few. My wife has been active in Al-Anon for coming up on 58 years. And that's created a partnership for us that is just extraordinary. My business partner, we've been partners 58 years. Our company is, like 55 years old or something like that. To be able to be the guy who was smart but not effective, who never finished anything. You have so altered my life. The God of my understanding that you have introduced me to. When someone stands up here and takes a 5-year cake and you say, how'd you do it? The fact is, we don't know. It is not of the mind. The mind does not know how we did it. The heart knows, and you can point to it. But it's transformational. It is of a science, it is of a way that cannot be trapped by thought. It is transformational. And little by slowly, you sit in meetings, you listen, you pick up something, someone says something, and bam, your heart goes, oh my God, that's wonderful. I think I'll write that down. Well, it doesn't matter whether you write it down. You just have, your knower knows you've just been handed a piece of truth that you'd never heard before. And every fiber of your body knows that it's exactly so. And you start to develop a relationship with your knower, with your intuitive powers, with your God connection. I went on in the real estate business, and we got back into a kind of a normal swing, and 2008 happened. I got in trouble again. Explain to your wife that you're in serious financial trouble the second time is more difficult than the first time. But 2008 was not, it was difficult, but not, it just took us give us 3 years and we'll pay everybody, and it gave us 3 years. The late 80s was a bloodbath. I was under my desk sucking my thumb in the fetal position. It sounds like when I tell you that I handled it well. I mean, it was a scary time, really scary. I don't know how you explain 57 years in a talk like this. In a funny sort of way, the most magical, to me, one of the most magical things about Alcoholics Anonymous is it doesn't change you as much as it brings you home. The process of finding God is a process of removal, not addition. We're going to remove what's in the way. What's left and underneath is just fine. It's unsullied, intact, original equipment manufacturer. It's okay. And little by slowly, they take that ball of shit that you have built up and drag your magnet through the junkyard of life, and you show up with a 5-foot ball. And they start power washing that thing after the meetings. And after about a year of power washing, you start to see there's something inside. You take a look at it, and my God, it looks like a lamp. And you get it down, and yeah, it's a lamp, you know. A year or so later, you get a cord. A year after that, you get a bulb, and you plug it in. And 5 years after that, you find out it's a 3-way bulb. I mean, it is magical. And yet, every one of us believes when we go make a 12-step call that we can drag that person into Alcoholics Anonymous and keep them. My sponsor used to say, if I can keep them for 2 years, we don't lose almost anybody after 2 years. That's, you know. We expect a spiritual awakening. Now, if you say that outside the program, and people go, woo! I mean, you know, I've got, you know, the words don't translate. Even in most churches, they don't translate. And yet, they are the core of what we believe. You sit in a meeting, and the meeting is spiritual awakening. And there's 30 people in the meeting, from 0 years to 30 years. And everybody in the meeting has something to say experientially about a spiritual awakening. I don't know what other room in the world you could have that. And it is, so the changes take place incrementally. You bring your damp log to the campfire of AA, and it dries out, and eventually it catches on fire, and you're in the game. We light your pilot light. You're in. You're tuned on. Thank you.